Welcome, adventurers. Today on Rebel Then King, I am continuing to build out adventuring parties using only one class. This time it is the Druid. As a reminder, I want to do this without using the field medic background, without cheesing human abilities like extra class feat or general training, without cheesing other ancestry abilities too much, mostly to see what I can get out of the class itself. And I think that with a Druid, this is going to be fairly easy because, as you know from my ranking videos, I consider the Druid to be kind of the definition of middle of the pack as far as quality goes and as far as abilities go. They are spellcasters, but they have medium armor proficiency and shield block, so they're fairly survivable. They're not fully squishy spellcasters, and they use the primal spell list, which I think is kind of the most balanced of all of the spell lists. So I think this party is going to do quite well. Let's take a look at the builds. Hey adventurers, I bet you don't want to hear me talking about liking, commenting, and subscribing, but I bet you do want to hear me talking about knife throwing. This channel is approaching 2 years old, and I'm going to celebrate here on YouTube with a knife throwing tutorial and analysis video that might look a little bit like this. I am also going to celebrate over on twitch.tv/RebelThenKing with a debut stream on March 27th. I'm going to look back at my channel over the last couple of years, at Pathfinder over the last couple of years, and hopefully that will be the start of a lot of behind the scenes and sort of variety content. So again, subscribe here on YouTube for knife throwing and follow me over on Twitch for that debut stream. We're going to start, as always, with the hammer, though this time the hammer is also the anvil because I am using the animal order, which will grant me an animal companion. My ancestry is an orc, the hermit nature background, of course. I chose a rainfall orc because I get a +2 circumstance bonus to athletics checks to climb or swim. It's good for this character who's going to index highly on strength, being in the front line. I, of course, have animal empathy as my voice of nature because that just makes sense with being an animal order druid. I did use an ancestry feat here for orc weapon familiarity to give this frontline combatant some extra hard-hitting weapons that would not otherwise be available to them. So yes, this is a hammer in the sense that it is using orc weapon familiarity, and I gave it a falchion, which is a D10 weapon. It is a two-handed D10 weapon, forceful and sweep trait. So that is pretty hard hitting as far as weapons go. But it is also an anvil. I equipped this with a frog animal companion. It has a tongue weapon, which has a reach of 15 feet. And I think that means flanking even at 15 feet away. Let's check on that. So if we go over to our pets here, we see that I did choose my giant frog, speed of 20 feet, climb 20 feet, swim 25 feet. So this is already cool. We've got something that can get to a lot of places in exploration that we wouldn't otherwise be able to. And yeah, sure enough, reach 15 feet on this tongue attack that does 1d4 +2 bludgeoning, though the jaws are a 1d8 +2. So if you want to do a little bit more damage, that would be the way to go. As far as spells go, because remember this is a spellcaster, I did choose Protect Companion as a cantrip because you want to keep that companion alive. I then mostly chose buffing spells, so Runic Weapon and then Conductive Weapon, though honestly I might just use Runic Weapon twice and use it twice in a day. If you notice, this is a character that only has +2 in their key ability score and their spellcasting modifier, so you don't want to rely too heavily on spell attacks or save-based spells because you're not going to be quite as good at them as you would be if you maxed out your key ability. I do have Scatter Scree as a bit of a ranged damage cantrip. It is save-based. I would rather have that than an attack spell with a low key ability modifier. And this does leave behind some difficult terrain, so that works regardless of what your key ability modifier is, so it's always got something going on. It's kind of the same with Eat Fire, that's a reaction, and then Sigil and Illuminate are just kind of fun for some exploration. So there is our hammer plus anvil, which I think will work out quite well. Definitely not an S tier, probably only a B tier hammer and a B tier anvil, but if the goal here as it is to see what we can do with the class only. This is actually fairly good in this role, in this position for a spellcaster. On to some of the things that the Druid is a little bit better known for. I have two different Midgards in this. A Druid is a great Midgard, if you ask me, so that's why I have two of them in this party. This is the one that focuses a little bit more on buffing. It is a human with an artist background. I did use Versatile Human to give me Intimidating Glare, so I am using some of these cheesy human abilities, but this is important. I then went with Cooperative Nature because this is the buffing build. You want to help people out. That is the cooperative nature there. And I went with the Stone Order for the Druidic Order. Some other details about this. You can buff your party with Guidance, which is a cantrip I have applied for this character, Cooperative Nature, which I just talked about, and also Take Root, which is a cool spell that I did not know about, a cantrip. Roots sprout from the flesh of the target and coil across the floor on around objects, reinforcing their stance or grip. The target is one willing creature within 30 feet, by the way. The targeted creature gains a +1 circumstance bonus to their Fortitude DC against attempts to shove them, and a +1 circumstance bonus to the Reflex AC against attempts to disarm or trip them. This also applies to saving throws against spells or effects that would attempt to remove a held item from their grasp. So this is a very cool ability cantrip there that you can cast probably on your Hammer and Anvil Druid in order to protect them a little bit more in the front line, in order to help them hold that front line against the enemy. You will also have Needle Darts and Ignition because you are a full spellcaster here with a full +4 Wisdom on your key ability score. That is important for being able to hit things with these attack cantrips. I also prepared Heal because this party is going to heal a lot. I don't think it's going to be a super high damage party, so combat might last a little bit longer than you want it to, which means that being able to heal a little bit more is going to be helpful. On that note, I also have prepared Rousing Splash, which is a good way to grant an ally some temporary hit points. Probably use that on your upfront Hammer and Anvil as well. And then Charm, because why not? You need some exploration spells. On to now the other Midgard in this party, which is a little bit more on the debuffing, even though this first one did have Intimidating Glare and a pretty good Charisma. So, you know, it can debuff as well. But the debuffing Midgard Druid, I chose a Trip Key. So we're going all in on frog people here. It is a spotter. It is a Poison Hide Trip Key, and it is using its Hunter's Defense. Let's take a look at this. So once per hour, trigger is a creature with the animal, beast, elemental, fey, fungus, or plant trait attacks you, and you can see the attacker. So your nature attacks. This is just a way to use your nature score for your AC, even though technically the AC is higher right now, but sometimes, as you read in that description there, or as I read out loud, I suppose, it is actually beneficial in the situations where your AC might be dropped, but your wisdom and your nature score is not. I did go with Plant Empathy here, and this is a Spore Order Druid. I realized I kind of forgot to talk about the focus spell of the last Druid build, so I'm going to go back to that real quick. Crushing Ground as part of the Stone Order Druid. This is a brutal one. It targets one creature within 60 feet. The target creature takes 2d6 bludgeoning damage with a reflex save. That is awesome. And I can't remember if I touched on the focus spell of my very first build, so going all the way back, it is Heal Animal. That is what comes with the Animal Order Druid. This is great, keeping your animal companion alive while your teammates help keep you alive. Anyway, back to the debuffing Druid here. Let's take a look at its focus spell, Mushroom Patch. You cause mushrooms to sprout in an area. This is a 10-foot radius burst within 60 feet. The area becomes difficult terrain when the spell is cast, and at the beginning of each round, the mushrooms release a cloud of irritating spores. Creatures in the area must attempt a Fortitude save. Critical success. The creature is unaffected, okay?
Let's get to the good parts. On a failure, the creature becomes dazzled for 1 round. Here we are with the debuffs. Critical failure, the creature becomes dazzled and slowed 1 for 1 round. So this is a huge debuff in a burst. So this could potentially be used to target multiple enemies at the start of a combat and just completely eliminate their ability to do anything to you, anything significant at least, in the first round of combat. That is huge. That is why this is the debuffing druid. I would use that all the time. I've also armed it with Puff of Poison, Tanglevine. You can possibly immobilize and slow down enemies with this. Another great debuff. Caustic Blast, some good damage. Slashing Gust, also good damage. Aqueous Blast as your rank spell, great damage. And then Flourishing Fauna. Just kind of leaning into the plant and mushroom nature of this. Plants grow rapidly up from the ground. All creatures in the target area take 2d4 damage. And then it kind of goes on and talks about the way that the damage changes, but it also has debuffs on it. So, for example, if you were to grow flowers, you deal poison damage, and this can leave the creatures dazzled for 2 rounds on a critical failure. You could also leave them clumsy or give them persistent bleed or fall prone depending on the type of plant that you are growing with this. So quite a lot of debuffing abilities in this build. Very cool that you have a buffing druid as well as a debuffing druid to kind of maximize your abilities and really stack all of the dice rolls in your party's favor. But if things don't go well, that's why we have our healing druid. And by healing druid, I mean magical healing druid, because we actually have great medicine training on our other builds, and surprisingly not on this one. Though I did prepare Rousing Splash and 2 heal spells on this build. That is kind of why this one is the healing druid, but also because its druidic order is the leaf order, which gives it the ultimate reusable focus spell, that and lay on hands, cornucopia. So every 10 minutes, vines twine into a wicker horn in your hands and out spills a single fruit, nut, or similar small bit of produce. A creature who eats the produce with an interact action gains 1d6 plus 4 hit points. So this is your easy, automatic, no check needed, in between combat, quick heal. It can also be used in combat, though of course it does take an interact action. But between the 2 heal spells, I had heals prepared on another build, multiple rousing splashes, cornucopia, and then medicine training on the other builds. This is a party that's going to heal themselves a lot, which is good because they're not going to do necessarily a ton of damage. Let's take a look at some of the weapon options here. We did talk about spells, and there are some good attack spells that we have in this party, but as far as weapons go, I armed this build with Javelin. I would presumably add more. So you would have multiple javelins, and there's a +3 dex, and I did add a +2 strength to this build so that that strength damage is applied on the thrown weapon, on the javelin. That's pretty decent. 1d6 plus 2 at range. I would say, 15 feet back or so with this build. Blast heal spells, and then throw a javelin as needed. The debuffing Midgard, what I did was throwing knives. Very similar idea. I just kind of like throwing knives. You can have one in each hand, and it would be a cool way to play, I think. I like knives. What can I say? For the buffing Midgard Druid, I did give it a heavy crossbow, figuring you can use it early on for a big shot and then switch over to spell attacks. So you'll notice this is good. We do have thrown weapons, which will add some strength. We have a heavy crossbow, so this is decent ranged weapon damage. Though this is where I do start to worry just a little bit, because that is 3 ranged builds. That's going to be a lot of slow chip damage. Range damage never stacks up quite as much as melee. And even with this melee build, the Falchion doing a d10 plus 3 is nowhere near your Barbarian, who would be doing a d12 plus 4 plus 3 or something like that. Or a Thaumaturge, who's going to be doing like a d8 plus 2 +3 or +4, or depends on whatever they discover with exploit vulnerability. I also, by the way, did give this hammer and anvil build some spears to throw, and I guess at some point everyone could stand back and throw things. It's kind of what this party is going to be doing, I guess. So with that said, let's get into the good and the bad of this party. The good. Lots of healing. I've kind of said it before. I think I've said it twice in this video, but here it is for a third time. Healing kind of fixes everything. They say time heals all wounds, but no, healing heals all wounds. Sure, this party might not have everything going for it, but it has multiple heal spells, though honestly, it has fewer heal spells than even a single cleric would have, so it's not that good, I suppose. But you do have the reusable cornucopia, and then there were multiple rousing splashes and multiple creatures or characters with good medicine training. So lots of healing. Good. I would call it good ranged damage with thrown weapons and spell attacks. It's not great range damage, but it is good. Another good thing that I kind of glossed over here, I didn't go into their defenses, but if you take a look between coral armor on one, hide armor on another, studded leather, scale mail, we have an armor class of 18, 18, 17, and 18. Basically max AC. And as far as hit points go, this hammer and anvil has 20 hit points because I gave it a +2 constitution. 16 for the Midgard, not bad. Well, 14 for the other Midgard, that's pretty low. And then 17. So this is maybe, I would say this is actually slightly above average for what a party would be. Obviously, a party of all martials would be higher on average, but this is pretty darn good. So I will say that I'll call it decent defenses. It's not great, but it's good. And then I do like that we get basically 2 characters for our hammer and anvil with the animal order druid and animal companion. So I'll call that out as well. Fun frontline combo. The bad. I think there's not too much that's horrible about this, though, as is always going to be the case when you only have one key ability score across all your characters, you're going to lack some skill training. I do have things mixed up fairly well. This character, the buffing Midgard Druid, does have a +3 charisma, so it is trained in intimidation and diplomacy. I have high dexterity on some of the characters, so I have stealth. And where is my other high dex character? I have stealth and, oh, someone needs to be trained in thievery. I kind of overdid. Let me change that. There we go. And then with my first build here, I do have some acrobatics and athletics. But as far as those intelligence-based skills go, like crafting, society, this party's not going to do very well. And then we've got to be honest here, it's lacking true hitting power. This is going to do a lot of fair chip damage. Again, the thrown weapons that add strength as compared to simple ranged weapons like just a sling that doesn't have any additional damage modifiers. That is going to go a long way. That's going to be extra chip damage. But you won't have many characters like a frontline fighter who can attack multiple times and possibly hit multiple times in a round. You won't have anybody doing huge melee damage that can drop an enemy in a single strike. So combat is going to be a bit long and a bit chippy with this party. But I still think this would be quite fun. Obviously, I should say the adventure setting could be a problem with this if this party was all in a city. You know, it depends how carefully you want to guard your anathemas, but potentially you could just be in a place that your entire party absolutely cannot stand, and that could be a long section of your adventure path. So that is something to consider as well. Still, I think it'd be a fun party. I certainly would not playing it. Let me know what you think. We'll build out something probably that's not going to work quite as well next time because, again, this is a middle-of-the-road class. It's a little bit good at everything, which means it's going to be at least decent when it is the only class used in your party.